and I'm very curious to know him and know about him and his story of his life. I am sure you will also enjoy his story along with I. So I would love for you to ask questions if you have any, but we will see if we can ask those questions in the end. But in the meantime, I am very curious and I want to introduce David. So, hello, David.
Hello, and Rehan, thank you very much for having me on your show.
Thank you. So, the way this goes is I love to hear the story of the person. I like to get to know them. Where are they from? Where were they born? What kind of family were they born in? What kind of parents did they have? Siblings? What do they do? So, it's like, more deeper dive into the person, not what they do, but what has made them into the person they are. So, I would love to hear as much information as you would like to share with us.
I will be very happy to, and typically I enjoy doing that also over the course of a nice dinner, having something to drink together, relaxed. And it doesn't matter that we are thousands of kilometers apart. It is exactly as if we were together after a nice dinner and just chatting and sharing our life stories, as you say. I was born in Budapest, Hungary. Hungary is a small country, 10 million people, right? The entire country is smaller than the city where you are right now. And Budapest, however, is really beautiful. It used to be the one of the political and artistic centers of Europe for hundreds of years. The river Danube crosses it. It has a beautiful royal palace and many, many other nice places to visit. Also, the Hungarian language is very different from every other language all around it. It is not similar to Russian, it is not similar to German, it is not similar to Italian or any other. And for me, growing up in Hungary under the communist regime was very nice because my life was stimulating. My father was an actor. He's dead now, and my mother is a painter, and she lives in Italy. I moved with her to Italy when I was 14. She married an Italian, and at the time I could choose. Do I want to stay in Hungary with my father, or do I want to move to Italy with my mother? And I've never been to Italy before, and it was just very, very interesting for me to experience that, even though moving from the capital city of 2 million people, Budapest, to a very, very small village near Venice of just 3,000-4,000 people was probably a bigger difference than not going from the communist regime to a Western capitalistic society. And so I went to high school in Italy, and I met the woman, the girl who would become my wife when I was 16. And she was the daughter of the local bookseller, because I love books. You can see here that I am in front of books, but actually I don't want to mess around with the camera. Even if I have a remote control, I could turn it around, but I don't want to risk anything. So I could show you that the books are all around. That is how much I love books, both physical and now, of course, digital too. And I married the daughter of the bookseller, and we moved to Milan, where I started my first and only job in artificial intelligence. I was an AI programmer, AI developer using Lisp and Prolog, two now ancient specialized languages for artificial intelligence applications. And then I left that company and I started my own companies doing all kinds of things: online video, speech recognition, computer security, both in Europe as well as in the US and then elsewhere. I was part of the team that designed Singularity University 12 years ago in California, where we really look at how technology is positively impacting the world. And based on that experience, I developed my current thinking around what I call network society, on one hand, of how our communities are changing and how our relationships are not necessarily and uniquely local anymore, but they are decentralized, and of jolting technologies, on the other hand, technologies like artificial intelligence that not only accelerate, but whose acceleration is increasing. I'm an only child, and I have 3 children of my own, 30, 26, and 20. 2 of them live in Italy, and one is in Seoul, South Korea. They have partners or don't have partners. I mean, the 2 older ones are boys or men, and they have very stable partners. And my daughter broke up with her boyfriend, who is also a friend of mine, and even though her own age, not my age, her own age, we became friends as they were dating. Now they broke up, but I stayed friend with my daughter's former boyfriend, and now she's looking for a new relationship in Korea, in Seoul. And just as I learned by doing, basically, and I'm not excessively manual. My wife, if you asked her, would tell you that I am not at all manual in terms of physically building things. But I learned how to be an entrepreneur, how to build companies, how to experiment with various kinds of technologies, and freely express my opinions around what I learned, right? I did this without asking permission to anybody, without being authorized by anybody, without having received a certificate in thing 1, 2, 3, 10, 100 that I try, that I share. And for me, it was always very exhilarating that people would be curious to listen to the things I had to say. And at the beginning, it was somewhat surprising and maybe a little bit worrisome that what I thought and what I said would have to be, quotation marks, perfect, because people would care about what I thought and what I said. But very rapidly, I realized that making mistakes was not only unavoidable, but necessary, because exactly I was exploring things that were new, were not completely understood, even by the specialists. So it was absolutely fine for me to try things and make mistakes and talk about the mistakes as well, from which others would be able to learn, as well as myself. And just as I did that, even though I studied physics at university, I didn't graduate. I wasn't smart enough to be a theoretical physicist, addressing the grand unification theories or the quantum loop gravity or the string theory approaches that are still confounding the brightest minds in physics. And on the experimental side, I knew I didn't want to become a cog in the machine where thousands or now tens of thousands of physicists are working together to realize incredibly interesting machines, but I didn't feel that I would be the right person to be part of that machine building the machine, where the machine of humans is building the machine. And my children are also pursuing their own paths that are somewhat non-standard, right? So they haven't graduated from college. Some of them haven't graduated even from high school, which is even more radical, if you wish, right? And of course, their learning is fantastic, even though their formal education is not complete or not going through the traditional paths. And each of them is curious, passionate, loyal, dedicated, adventurous, diligent, all kinds of things that we want our children to be. So I am extremely proud of all of them. I am ready to be a grandfather as soon as one of them will bring me a children. I mean, it depends, of course, on many parameters, but I love small children. And as of right now, I don't have one or more in my life, so it is up to them to provide that. And as soon as one or more of them will have a child of their own, it will be an absolute pleasure for me to see how that new person is going to develop as well. And I'm looking forward to that next phase.
Wonderful. So, does your wife still works, or does she work, or she got the bookstore running?
So when we met, she was working at the bookstore, but only occasionally, because I was finishing high school. She was finishing high school as well, and then she started in an architectural firm, right? And that's her passion. When we moved to Milan, she also enrolled in the Polytechnic of Milan, which is one of the world's top schools. And then she worked in architectural firms in Milan as well. And then we co-founded actually my first company that still exists, even if I sold my shares, as well as my wife sold her shares. But we are proud to see that the company still exists. And after that, she decided to build her passions and her activities, uh, as well as look after the children, of course, because I used to travel a lot. I would still travel if I could, and I am looking forward when I will be able to start again. I have been at home for a month, literally not leaving the house. Luckily, it is a beautiful large house, so I don't feel a prisoner, but still I am, right? And of course, I can't complain. There are millions or billions of people who are not in a privileged situation like I am. But before being in lockdown, I would travel in 2, 3 different countries per month because I am constantly invited. I was constantly invited to keynote conferences to be the opening speaker that not only talks about technologies and AI and whatever changes are coming in the world, but who also has the opportunity to inspire the attendees and to really prepare the ground for an entire day or multiple days of excitement and a can-do positive attitude with thousands of people listening. So I would go to Tokyo, to Moscow, to Buenos Aires, to New York or San Francisco, to London, etc., etc., etc. I have never been to Pakistan, and then I would come home. I have companies in different countries, so I would also go and visit the local teams because even though we work organized in distributed teams, having an in-person meeting from time to time is always beautiful. Or we would organize retreats where 10 or 20 of us would get together of a particular team to spend 3-4 days planning and deepening our mutual knowledge. So since I was and I have been traveling a lot for the past more than 20 years, my wife chose to stay with the kids at home, and I would always come back, and then I always would leave again with a rhythm that luckily was never the rhythm of Ulysses, Odysseus, from the poem of Homer, who left for 10 years without knowing that he would be back. And then it took another 10 years for him to come back from the war of Troy, right? In this beautiful poem. And a lot of people don't remember that after he came home to find his wife and his grown-up son and his dog, very, very old, who waited for him and died after seeing him having returned, he spent some time at home. And then the last verse of the poem shows you that he's starting to leave again because he cannot stay home. So that is quite amazing. So I am not gone for 10 years, but I travel, or I used to travel a lot, and now we are doing this, right? Which is also very, very good. I enjoy digital interactions, which in my opinion are not inferior to physical interactions. They are just very different, but they are extremely valuable, and they give us opportunities that in the physical world we could never have.
It seems like you strike a chord with people of Pakistan because you have a big beard now, and apparently, if I take away your name, you can be Muhammad David and Muhammad Dawood, as the Muslims would call you. That's David is the Urdu word for David is Dawood. It's the same word, it's the same name. So Mr. Dawood is here. Hey everyone! So Mr. Dawood is here, and you can add him, and you can connect with him, and you can talk about him on religion. To be honest, I think that would be very interesting conversation if you had some conversation on religion and the role of religion in the future and in the past. A lot of people would be very, very interested, and I think you are learned enough to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it right now, but I have identified some questions which are of my interest. So let's talk about, first of all, when I listen to you, I feel like I'm hearing to some part of Ray Kurzweil's accent, or Ray is speaking. So, since you hang out with him, I guess, because of Singularity, uh, it's interesting to hear that. And I also hear a little bit of Peter Diamandis also. So you never know. Say hi to them for me when you see them.
Of course.
My question is, define what is networked society in today's world for somebody who's traveling multiple countries a year. The world is very different for someone who has never left their country or their city, and the world is very different for someone who travels 3 countries a year, a month. So explain in as to somebody who's 9 year older who's never traveled, what a network society actually means.
Um, our world is constantly transformed by technology. It has been like this for 10,000 years and more. Uh, Actually, when we invented fire, we transformed our body because our stomach is smaller than the stomach of a gorilla, because we don't have to spend so much time and so much energy to digest food, because the food is pre-digested by fire for us. And the consequence of that is that we could grow our brain. The energy that our brain absorbs is out of proportion with every other animal. So we literally are evolving with technology. And even the people who are not um, having the opportunity of traveling physically to other places, today with mobile phones that are very inexpensive and with internet access, have the opportunity of traveling digitally and learning about all the world and the opportunities that the world offers through the internet. And the concept of network society is that the organization of our society depends by the technology that we have available at any given moment. So it was natural for the Romans, for example, 2000 years ago, to have slaves. They had a beautiful big building to build, like in Rome, the Colosseum, where then there would be the gladiators fighting with lions and each other. And the slaves built the Colosseum. And if you asked me, as I was building that 2000 years ago as a slave, if that was just, I would absolutely tell you that it wasn't. I was suffering and I didn't want to be a slave. But then, if your second question were, do you see an alternative? I would have told you it's impossible. We have to build this thing, and obviously, slaves are needed in order to build it. Except I would have been wrong, because as time evolved, we started using all kinds of technological tools, and now there are skyscrapers that are incredible. And if a Roman would see them, they would seem miraculous. And we know that those skyscrapers have been built by machines, and slavery is now illegal all over the world. So the question is, if technology changes society, what are the changes that we can expect? Are the nation states going to be the right answer to the challenges of giving opportunity to everybody forever? Or are we going to see a different kind of social organization because of the technological tools that we have available? So I started collecting technologies that I could see leading towards an alternative. Solar energy, hydroponics, digital manufacturing and 3D printing, blockchain technologies and Bitcoin, peer-to-peer learning, personalized health. These are all independent developments that are pointing to a different social organization that does not depend on a central hierarchical decision making like we are seeing in the nation state all over the world today. And the disruption that these technologies are already causing is profound, because today we are in a biological crisis that is going to be addressed and solved by our advancing knowledge of DNA and molecular biology and the ability to create vaccines and deploy them for billions of people to protect themselves. But at the same time, big changes are happening as well. The era of oil is over. The era of renewable solar electricity is here. And the people in Pakistan, in the villages, can now think of how to find, for example, the small amount of funding that is needed in order to transform how they manage their water, how they light their homes, how they connect to the internet, how they power their devices, how they learn to empower themselves and everybody else through, for example, solar technology. And the result of all these transformations is what I call network society, a socio-economic organization that is decentralized and what comes after the nation state. I can't hear you.
So, what was the role of the nation state up till 2020? And post Corona, how do you see the value of uh, nation state? And where do you see ourselves in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, 20 years' time? What is happening to the political evolution of humanity? Because I don't know if you have read this book called the Sovereign Individual, which has it's a very 10-year-old book, which has explained the evolution of politics. Most people don't understand it, so I don't really talk about it. But I think you understand that the sovereign individual is born, is here. You are one of them, and how to use our sovereignty. Right now, every human inside their house is kind of sovereign, but he's still relying on food from outside and other things. And yesterday I talked about how we need to grow our own food also on our roofs and whatever space we have available, because we don't know what will happen to supply chain in the next 3 months of humankind, because it's all being disrupted. And food might become a big crisis for people in corona, in post-corona time. So where do you see the role? What was the role of nation state, so people can understand? Because in our country, you will see we're very, very nationalistic. We're still using the nationalism to unite people, to get things done. I think Europe was like this, and the West was like this, and it is transforming and changing. Please tell us your observations on the past, present, and future of politics as we know it, or the nation state.
So, yes, today the nation state is everywhere. You cannot be born on planet Earth today and not be subject to a nation state. And some of them are very liberal, um, in the sense that you can decide to leave the nation state and to renounce your citizenship. Others are extremely jealous of every one of their citizens, and they don't want to let them go. Now, of course, on the surface, this is all for your own good. And yes, there are people who are very proud of where they were born, what is the national flag and anthem, the history, or even the current opportunities of conflict. And they may be proud of their nation killing other people. But these are very different from natural laws, where if you like gravity, the apple will fall. And if you stop liking gravity, the apple will still fall. When people will stop believing in the nation state will stop existing. It will not give up without a fight. Actually, the most dangerous time is right now, because the coronavirus clearly demonstrated the universal inability of the nation state to address the exponential challenges that humanity faces. There has been no country, with very, very few exceptions, like Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, South Korea, maybe, who were organized in a manner not to expose their citizens to the mortal danger of the pandemic. And one of the worst organized is a country that we all admire, the United States of America, who loves to believe to be the first and the exceptional. And as of right now, they are on the verge of infecting more of their citizens than China. And unfortunately, in percentage, that will mean that their lack of organization will kill more of their citizens than China, almost unavoidably. So the future of the nation state really depends on its ability to deliver value to the people who are inhabiting it. And more value is going to be available to people independently from the good or bad decisions that the nation states are each individually doing. The technologies that I mentioned before empower and emancipate the individual, rebalancing the power, where you are not as much exposed as you were before. If they cut your electric cord and you are not connected to the electric grid anymore, you can say, well, I am sorry you can't receive my excess electricity that I am generating with my solar panels. I am sorry for you. If they don't want to deliver food, you can say my hydroponics, and in the near future, your synthetic meat as well, if you are a meat eater like I am, will be able to give you independence and self-reliance with regards to your food production. And even though today the internet architecture is such that in many countries, Pakistan included, there can be people who decide that 100 million or 200 million people shouldn't get access to YouTube or Wikipedia or Facebook because they know better than any of the 200 million people, and their decisions are more important than the objectives and opportunities of self-empowerment and learning of those 200 million people. We are busy building architectures that are going to be unstoppable. The first of these architectures is the financial architecture of blockchain and Bitcoin, which is very important. I don't know if PayPal is available in Pakistan or still not, but Pakistan shouldn't want PayPal. PayPal is a tool of American imperialism, and it is a tool of financial surveillance. So if it is available, all right, use it, but use it not too much. Learn about Bitcoin, learn about blockchain. And if Bitcoin and blockchain are perceived by the local government as dangerous, teach them, educate them, make them understand that they can also thrive by learning about these technologies. So in the future, politics is going to change in a direction that will overcome the current limitations of the representative democracies. Churchill was not joking when he said, democracy is the worst kind of government except every other kind. He was challenging us. And for 70 years, we ignored the challenge because we didn't feel we could aim to build a better system that would represent our interests, organize resources in order to achieve them, coordinate for global challenges to be addressed as well. But today, it is a necessity. Whether it is climate change, whether it is the pandemic, whether it is the next asteroid that is not going to miss the planet, but is going to hit us in order to exterminate us like it happened to the dinosaurs, it is clear that the nation states are completely unable to address these challenges. But 7, shortly 8 billion minds can work together, just like it is happening today for COVID-19, where open source collaboration of tens of thousands of people is producing completely innovative designs for respirators, for medical components, obviously in tremendous conflict with the regulatory environment of the nation states, that on one hand want to protect the public, on the other hand, they are definitely corrupt and are protecting the economic interest of the incumbent companies who have been enriching themselves and sometimes through corruption, the regulators themselves, and are not serving the public. So that is why the people who are now coordinating over the internet in order to take this in their hands represent what is going to be the norm in the future. In the future, individuals are not going to depend on the whims of the nation state where they reside. They are going to be free to participate in alternative organizations. And of course, for a long time, nation states will still pretend that they rule. And we have to be careful because nation states can kill you. They can kill you economically. They can take away your freedoms. They can legislate crazy laws, laws of thought, laws of opinion, laws where things that you say can be deemed to be enough to kill you. And those nation states that feel the need to impose themselves on their citizens with that kind of weight, I prohibit you from thinking, I prohibit you from speaking certain things, if not I kill you, they are not powerful, they are weak, because pretending that these laws are necessary, otherwise the citizens are not going to be able to organize a peaceful society, an enlightened society, a society that can thrive, is very, very misguided. So we have to understand that the mistakes that politicians make are very seldom because they are bad people. They make those mistakes because they are badly advised and they are just normal human beings like we are. So we have to help them. We have to help them with our opinion, with our advice, balancing the mistakes and hopefully nudging the politicians to reconsider. That is, for example, what happened in the United Kingdom, that a couple of weeks ago thought that the best approach for the coronavirus would be just to let their citizens die if they had to die. And everybody was saying, no, we don't think that is a good approach. I think you are very, very gravely mistaken. And 24 hours later, they completely changed the strategy around coronavirus. And rather than letting the inhabitants of London and the rest of the country just do whatever, they said, yes, please go home, stay home, because that is how we can control this pandemic. So they showed, after making a mistake, to be able to change their mind. And that is very important. So the future of politics is going to be also about good mistakes rapidly corrected.
So all of you who you think have no power except voting, you now have the power of Twitter and your video. Shoot a 2 minute video to whoever you think is doing wrong, tweet it to them, and tag the news agencies, because even if the government people don't watch those tweets, somebody is watching and somebody is going to listen, and eventually you will create a small little nudge which is needed for them to change their opinion till you reach the power where you need help. Singularity University. Singularity University and Ray Kurzweil and Peter preach that four people group can impact a billion people's lives. Um, I think one of the biggest problem in the third world countries is the system of having low self-esteem and having so low self-belief. Hungary is not, I don't consider it as far behind it. I mean, you don't live there anymore, but I've traveled a lot of countries in Europe, and I've lived in some, and I've seen this problem as a human disease, especially people who are smart. They leave the country because the system doesn't work, and then they have a brain drain, and the change makers who are supposed to make the change are no longer there. And one of the reasons of my 500 mutual friend experiment was also this, that to give them self esteem, self belief that they can be the change maker. Um, do you believe in this notion that four people can really make an impact on 1 billion lives? And tell us your journey with Singularity University.
So the fact that in today's world, thanks to our interconnectedness and thanks to the platforms of internet, of mobile phones, of app stores, um, this can really happen is not a belief, is a fact. Uh, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook itself have been started just by a handful of people. When Instagram was acquired by Facebook, they were not four, but they were a dozen. So really, just a handful of people, or two hands if you have 6 fingers each hand. And they were acquired for $1 billion, right? So a lot of value that since then Facebook has been able to multiply many times over. And impacting 1 billion people, of course, is something you will do if you address a huge problem, because by solving it, naturally 1 billion people will come and say, oh my God, I want this solution as well. But not all of us are ready for the complexity of managing an organization that unavoidably grows in order to support all those people. And that is totally fine. I really think that one of the messages of Singularity University is not necessarily to follow the Silicon Valley startup model, but to believe in the power of technology to enable you to look around in your community and to see what can be improved thanks to technology. Because there are a lot of things that we are tolerating and we shouldn't, things that can be improved. And if there is one thing that can be admired by the Americans, is this belief they have, if they still have it, that they can improve themselves, and by improving themselves, they can improve their community, their environment, and the world. So making that your own is a good first step. Singularity University established a lot of chapters around the world. And if you want to check in your favorite search engine, Google, for example, just Singularity University, Karachi or Islamabad chapter, You can find out if there are already. But if not, you don't need the official sanction. And if they are listening to me, I hope they will understand my message. The official recognition by Singularity University is nice. Obviously, it warms your heart. But the substance of what you need to do is available on YouTube with hundreds of hours of the lectures that people pay $10,000, $15,000 to listen to when they go to Singularity University in person. And by listening to those lectures and talking about them with your peers, with friends in the same city who have this same passion you have for the internet, for technology, for solving problems in your community, you can create a group. And that group doesn't need to be officially recognized. That group can meet once a month to talk about things and then hopefully do something about them as well. Whether it is just a cleaner city, whether it is educating people about electric scooters, maybe not electric cars, still too expensive, but electric scooters cannot be too expensive, especially if you couple them with solar panels. You stop paying for gas. And that can be very powerful even in the poorest of the communities, because gas is expensive everywhere. And if you don't pay for gas anymore because you take the sunshine and you put it in your scooter and you go to buy groceries or you deliver a package and you earn money by delivering that package, and you can look up electric scooters on Alibaba, and even if they are not locally produced, the Chinese are going to be very happy to send them to you. And maybe you can become a local reseller, or you can become a regional distributor. Or after a couple of years, you can call up the Chinese and say, listen, why don't we create a local plant that actually builds these scooters here so that the price can go further down, because we don't have transportation, we don't have customs duties to pay or whatever else, and we sell 10 times or 100 times as many. And with electric scooters, the quality of the air will become better. Your children's breathing will be better. The air of their schools is going to be better. Their thinking will be better. So this is the kind of reasoning that Singularity University tries to tell people each of them individually can do, and they can find other people who are thinking similarly, and they can act to make the world a better place.
We have 5 minutes left. Last words.
Well, I am looking forward to come and visit Pakistan. I am looking forward to meeting in person you, but also other people, to see a country that is very interesting and intriguing and with a huge potential. Uh, there is no reason for Pakistan not to become a center of space exploration, for it to become a center of molecular biology or digital fabrication. There are so many things that we still have to discover and we still have to apply in order to make all of our lives better. Uh, and I am just curious also for the things that I cannot anticipate. And it is something that I hope, whether in 6 months or a year, it could happen. And your followers and the people in the communities of your followers can take just a few minutes of time in order to listen to the things that you are saying, or maybe to listen to a few sentences of what I said to them, and make a little bit of difference in their lives, that will be a wonderful gift that you have given me in this hour of conversation we had together. And yes, I welcome their connection, and I will engage with them in a conversation. And you and I know that it is a big investment in our time, in our energy, but we do it with love, and we do it in order to create these beautiful connections. So I feel really privileged, and I feel very much at the beginnings of a journey that we are doing together, as well as with everybody that today watched our conversation.
I have a lot more questions for you, but since you have to go, I would like to welcome you for another hour of conversation anytime this week, next week, whenever you feel like it. I would like to tell you that Pakistan already has around 4 million freelancers, and I think it will exponentially grow in the next 1 or 2 years. It will double for sure. And what that means is that Pakistan is a fundamental cog. People of these freelancers are a fundamental cog to build something new. So, for example, in the past, you needed servers and everything. Now you just need to plug in into an Amazon EC3 cloud. Similarly, if you just plug in into a cloud of freelancers from Pakistan, you can become the next Google, you can become the next Amazon, because you can hire help from this country at a very, very low rate right now, which will not be the case for a very long time. But right now, you can hire a decent programmer for only $200 a month, or less than 200 euros a month, which means that you can build phenomenal organizations over the internet using the network um, which we have available. And I would like to welcome you to think on those pet projects which you might have and you want to invest in, and start a virtual incubator online
I am so
and
glad.
take advantage
I am
of my
so glad
network.
that you mentioned that, because I would have felt very bad not saying hello to my accountant, Mirza Muhammad Masood in Jalalabad, who I found on Upwork. And so, yes, the opportunity for a lot of people in Pakistan to earn money being engaged online is something obviously very, very important. And I am glad that you mentioned that. And I'm saying hello to Mirza. When I come, I want to meet you as well, because I, of course, haven't met him in person in the physical world either. So thank you very much for this final remark that made me possible to say hello to my friend and my accountant, Mirza.
And since you are an investor, I would encourage you to see, because we are going to open 400 physical incubators in Pakistan in the next 3 years. We already have around 25. It's a big country. It's 10 times bigger than the country you live in. And once you understand the size and magnitude of the things which you can do here, it's stupid not to invest here a little bit of money. And because in the amount of money you would invest in a Silicon Valley company, you can start 100 companies over here, because people live with their families, people live with their parents, they don't have expensive. That's why you can hire people at a much lower rate, and it will not be the same forever. So again, thank you so much for your time. I hope that we can talk about more subjects to come. I really enjoyed it, and I think there's so much I can learn from you. It will be wonderful and phenomenal to host you here. You're more than welcome, and looking forward to speaking to you soon again.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. So, everyone who watched, please make sure to share it out to your network. This conversation was for the people who have a hungry mind, not just hungry stomach, and who want to grow. And he is someone you can watch a daily show with, and he loves to ask interesting questions. And if you are one of those curious minds who has been hiding within these networks, which is whoever's listening, you're more than welcome to again follow him, follow his page, and I will go ahead and make a post about his book, which you can use the coupon code. It's on artificial intelligence, and you will get $10 off on that also. So I hope you will take advantage of this lovely offer by him and take advantage of the knowledge on the internet available to you and amazing mentors like him available to us, all of us, and take advantage of this time which we have to grow yourself. God bless you. Take care.